Like many people, Chimpo and I recently have been really tired of all the slop that's been released lately, so we both decided to take a break from that and go play a game that we'd heard about but had never played before. That game was Vanquish, and whenever we both played this, even though we found the game to be deeply flawed, it was a lot of fun. I can honestly say that I've had more fun with Vanquish than the vast majority of recent AAA releases.
Well, you played this before me, and one of the things that you told me was, am I crazy? Because I had a ton of fun with this game, yet thought it had a ton of issues. And having played it, I feel the same way. And one of the core things that really made me like it, despite some of those issues, which we'll talk about later, is that it just has an unapologetic focus on gameplay.
When it's sad that that's something that stands out in the modern day, but it really does.
Yeah, that the gameplay in a video game is good.
And it is the focus.
The gunplay in Vanquish is pretty decent as far as third-person shooters go. It's nothing special, but what really sets the game apart is that it's this unique mixture between a cover shooter and a movement shooter, which does sound like a bit of an odd combination, but surprisingly it does work really well. Being able to just slide around and pop robot domes in slow motion and then transition right back into cover to take out some long-range enemies is a really fun gameplay loop. And on top of that, also comboing the slide into a melee and then going straight into bullet time to clear a group of enemies just never got old across the game's runtime.
Yeah, I really did love the gameplay of this game, mainly just because of how fast and frenetic and cohesive it all was.
And like I mentioned, within that fast and frenetic pace, you can also then use your movement tools to get back into cover and get your cooldowns back or lay down fire on a specific target, so you can really switch back and forth quite often.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things I like about the slide and the slowdown, because it practically works like cover away from cover, where say you need to move to a different piece of cover or get a better position on enemies, you can do so safely with the slide and the slowdown, taking out targets on the way. And one of the things this also means is that say you get cornered by a powerful enemy or a large group of enemies, so long as you have the meter for it, you always have an option of escaping or repositioning to keep the fight flowing and kinetic and in your favor. And due to this mobility and the ability to slow down time via the AR mode, Sam is immensely powerful and feels great to play, and leads to an overall satisfying core gameplay loop. Now, while it is true that a lot more could have been done to develop some of the ideas in the game, as we've said before, even with a lot of the shortcomings, this game still is a ton of fun to play. And I think one of the reasons why is that there's a decent amount of variety within the gunplay. Now, the vast majority of the gunplay, as Chimpo said, is pretty standard fare, point and shoot, but amidst that, you have various different things that spice up the gameplay, whether it's mountable installations like the turret, the transport gun, or even the bipedal robots. And you also have various gimmicks within the level design that add an extra layer of complexity as you navigate these levels and fight through them. Now, sometimes this works to the detriment of the game, but the good largely outweighs the bad. On top of that, you even have some more esoteric gameplay mechanics that allow you to do a lot of cool stuff. One of the things that I always thought was really cool and swanky to do is use the cigarette mechanic, where Sam tosses a cigarette up in the air, all the enemies locking on it and start shooting it. You hop out of cover, slow down time, and blast them all.
That mechanic was so goofy, and the first time I used it, it was totally on accident because they don't tell you about it, and I just happened to hit shift while in cover and see it.
But it's really charming and fun to do. It's one of those things you don't see anymore, where it's something you figured this out and you sit there and you giggle to yourself and then do it a lot more, having fun with it the whole time. I mean, did you not do that whenever you first found out you could do it? You're like, oh, that was cool, let me do that again.
Well, yeah, and I've been using it in real life too, whenever I get into fights. It's pretty effective.
They just flick a black and mild up in the air, then aim your gun at the bodega owner. You can also do a reload skip, which I'm not sure if this was an intentional mechanic or a bug. While it is abusable, it also seems necessary for some of the higher difficulties like God Hard, and it's just a neat little thing that you're allowed to do.
There's also immense player freedom in how you deal with certain enemies in this game. Like, take the Romanovs, for example, which are one of the standard fare, more powerful enemies you'll encounter. You can shoot their heads off, which cripples their awareness and accuracy. You can dismember their arms, which will limit their offensive capabilities and disable guns attached to their arms. You can dismember their legs to cripple their movement, which lets you go deal with other threats in the meantime. Some of the variations have a tank on the back, which you can shoot the tank to explode them that way. And there's even a rocket version that has a giant cannon on its back, and it shoots a mini nuke. You can wait for it to do that move and shoot the nuke right as it comes out of their cannon and just obliterate them instantly.
Yeah, and a lot of this was stuff I didn't figure out until multiple playthroughs after, and then figuring out all the various ways to deal with this and approach each gameplay encounter strategically was always fun for me. And it's especially helpful in the challenge missions that you find later, but more on that in a moment. Another aspect of this game that we both enjoyed was the animations. The animations look great. Now, most of the weapons actually have a unique melee animation attached to them, and on top of that, some of the animations also have unique gameplay mechanics The shotgun has a charged melee, which also functions as a parry, or the disc launcher melee uses ammo instead of AR meter, or you even have the heavy machine gun that allows you, when you melee, to fly up into the air. You can use that to cancel it into a slow motion attack to get a nice aerial view of the enemies and rain down fire upon them. All of it looks great and is tons of fun to do. On top of that, the sliding is stylish and keeps combat fast and fluid. And there are even multiple animations associated with entering and exiting the slide, like Sam breakdancing or flipping or doing a somersault to recover from the slide. You have little animations that make the game feel alive, whether it's Burns taking a sip of bourbon from his flask, or even some of the swanky dancing robots. There's just a lot of little animations that show that the devs really cared when they made this game.
And they're built within the gameplay. They're not kind of the more modern approach where the animations are this mini cutscene that you get for performing a specific action.
Oh yeah, where you press a button and then you wait 10 seconds for the animation on screen to end.
Yeah, these all feel like they happen within the game. And
when it's fast, it's fluid, you're never out of the game. You're constantly in it.
Well, and in the case of Sam, for example, when you come out of the slide and he does that weird breakdance thing, I didn't like that because it kind of left you vulnerable for a second, but you can cancel it into a roll. So you can always kind of have control over how you want him to move.
But also keep in mind that when you do that breakdance to get up, you can use that to do a grenade drop if you want to. So, I mean, there are, even within these small animations, there are unique actions that you can take within them. Not always, but little things like that you'll find as you play the game more and more.
And even though you can definitely tell that there are certain aspects of this game that feel rushed, the simplicity of the gameplay loop is pretty refreshing. One thing you'll notice immediately is you get every ability that you're going to have throughout the game right at the start.
Well, I actually like that. I wish more games would do that. I think it works particularly well for a game like this that is so short and replayable.
Yeah, because drip feeding mechanics can work in some games, but I really have to respect that from minute one, you can start working on mastering Sam's entire kit and always feel like you're actually improving. Not to mention on repeat playthroughs, having to re-unlock moves that you've already been using. Another thing that's refreshing is there aren't upgrades that require currency to unlock moves or passive buffs. It's just the simple gameplay loop of swapping between aggression with movement and playing more carefully around cover when you need to.
Out of all the things it feels very focused into keeping you in the action at all times. And again, I appreciate that given the gaming landscape that we're in now, where everything seems to want to take control away from you, get you away from the gameplay, get you distracted with other things. This game is gameplay first.
And aside from rare small moments that we'll get into later, the game is just pure non-stop gunfights with no fluff. Obviously, aside from, cutscenes and walking sections, which we'll talk about later. But compare that to the modern Platinum games and their approach with Ninja Gaiden 4 with all the rail grinding, surfing, air riding, and it is night and day.
To add on to the positive aspects that we like about this game, and this is something I feel like we shouldn't even be praising. This should be something that just happens and you don't even notice it. But again, given the landscape that we're in, it makes you appreciate these smaller details. This game is very reactive in the actual gameplay itself. Like, say you shoot your allies and you shoot Burns, they will react to you. Burns himself even has unique lines for whenever you shoot him. Whenever Sam gets into combat, his mask closes, and when he gets out of combat, it opens, indicating when you're in and out of combat. Voices slow down whenever you go into AR mode. Bullet casings normally fly out of the gun and onto the ground, but when you're in low grav, they just float away from the gun. And enemies even react appropriately whenever you damage them in combat. And again, I know none of this should be praiseworthy, but because we've lost it, now I'm beginning to notice it as I go back and play these older games.
It is sad. I want to roast you for praising any of this stuff, because this is just the absolute baseline for how a game should be.
I get it. This is all stuff that should be there that we would never talk about if it was still the norm, but it's not.
Despite the praise that we've heaped on this game for the last little bit here, if you've watched any of our videos, you know what's coming next. Because even for games that we enjoy, we're going to get into the aspects we felt weren't as good or could be improved. And the easy starting point, although it's more minor for us, is the story. The story of this game is really nothing more than a vehicle to move you from combat encounter to combat encounter and give you a reason to go to the next location. The characters aren't developed at all and the plot feels rushed. They want you to have this Burns versus Sam clashing of ideals, with Burns being the ends justify the means guy, and Sam following his conscience and being guided by morality.
It's very reminiscent of MGR. You can kind of see how that story came about. It feels like Vanquish's story walked so MGR's could run.
Yeah, I felt that. It's almost the same plot with little details switched around, but the characters in MGR had so much more personality and soul, which made it work despite the fact that it still wasn't some incredible, deep story.
Making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't fret over every egg.
Right, and don't get me wrong, like some of the characters in this game have charm.
San Francisco is gone now.
That was for the good of all Americans.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But it's just the narrative oomph behind it is really missing. As you said, the story just kind of feels like it's there just to move you from encounter to encounter rather than to really say something, which again, not a big deal because the gameplay is the focus. But our point, I think, is always this, that if you're gonna include a story, either make it good or don't put it in. I don't think that's a big ask.
Yeah, ideally make the story good. If you can't be asked to do that, make it so minimal that it may as well not even be there. Don't make me watch all these cutscenes if it's not gonna be good.
Dude, I'm thinking of the old Monster Hunter stories. Like, it was just a few paragraphs of dialogue and then you're done. You could skip past all of it. So I'm totally fine with a game not having a story. If the story is bad, just give me extra gameplay. I'm okay with that.
The one positive I can give the story is it at least shows us what would happen if we elected a woman as president, which is the entire country will be at war and things will go horribly wrong. But hey, the one positive, at least San Francisco got nuked, which, isn't the worst thing that could happen to the U.S.
Well, they were going to get New York next, so is it really that big of a loss? Is this low-key kind of based?
Should we elect one, let it get to that point, and then lead the coup? Not so bad.
I mean, worse things could happen. She could be black.
I'm speaking.
She also toaster baths at the end, so, at least the problem kind of solves itself. But luckily, the gameplay is the focus, so the story being bad isn't really a huge deal, even though it still could have been a lot better, even with it not really being a focal point.
This game also has a real lack of content. I hesitate to criticize this, but I can understand people who are shy of giving this game a try because it's only a 4-hour campaign. Now, it's highly replayable, but I get there's a lot of people that don't like replaying games. I love to replay my games. I do it constantly, and this game certainly has a lot of appeal to people who like replaying games and going for high scores, but that's not most people. In addition to the standard story mode, you also have a challenge mode, which is just a small series of timed combat arenas. Now, to be entirely fair, there are some genuinely great encounters within the challenge mode arenas, and I actually think that some of the enemy combinations and map layouts of these arenas encourage you to make better use of your weapons and abilities than most of the arenas in the campaign. So I really would have liked to see the enemies utilized better and more cohesively inside the main campaign itself.
I liked these challenges too. I do just wish there were more of them, or like you said, that same design was in the campaign a bit more.
A third thing we really didn't care for is, while I did like engaging with the melee system, it is far too risky to be practical in many situations. Like, I really feel like the melee would be much better off if it only cost some of your stamina than all of it. And it really feels like melees are meant to end the encounters rather than to be used throughout them. Now, that being said, there is some alternative utility for the melees that you can use. For example, if you do a melee out of a slide, you can attack a piece of cover and it allows you to vault up into the sky and shoot hard to reach enemies, and afterwards it lands you safely behind cover. And there are also some more advanced players that will use melee to aid them in traversal while saving on their AR meter. But overall, I wish melee was reworked just a little bit to make it less costly instead of overheating you immediately.
Or at the very least, bounce it around the different type of melee. So maybe you could have a melee with a certain weapon that didn't use your full bar, and a bigger weapon that had a better melee could use your whole bar. Just little things like that so you could use it more often.
Well, to be fair, I'm sure people would say, well, you have the disc launcher that can do that. And yeah, you're right. The problem is the disc launcher melee is very high commitment, and it takes up 1 out of 3 very valuable weapon slots, which I just don't think is worth it.
Another small little thing that I didn't care for too much was I don't like that it automatically puts you into bullet time on low health, because it once again, like many other criticisms, it really just feels like it takes agency away from the player. It automatically overheats you after you come out of the bullet time once you hit low health, which can easily lead to death, but why not just let me decide when to use ARS? It really feels like a cheap bailout for when you screw up rather than letting you die for your bad positioning or AR meter management.
It also doesn't help that it's very difficult to determine where your health is. Like, I played this game, probably 6 times, because it's so short. I never figured out how to gauge my health until we found out this one little thing.
I'd seen multiple other people questioning it too, like, what is Sam's health? How do you tell, aside from when your screen goes red and you go into ARS on low health? And what I found was that Sam's armor will glow green when you're at full, yellow when you're somewhat damaged, and red when you're badly hurt. But it is extremely subtle to notice during combat. especially if you're at an angle on a piece of cover where you can't even see that particular spot on his armor. And I can certainly appreciate the attempt at keeping the UI clean, but your current health level should be a lot clearer than it is, even if you're not going to use a bar on the UI.
I also noticed that sometimes the pacing can be a little off in this game. The main thing I'm thinking about when I bring up this criticism is the monorail sniper section. Platinum just can't help themselves. For whatever reason, they need to put one of these little gimmicky areas in their game like this that just bring everything to a screeching halt and distract you from the thing that you want to be doing. And even if it's only a 5-minute section, it's so out of place and absurd to include in a game like this. And it's also insanely easy to the point where failing it feels impossible, making it feel pointless.
That was my thoughts on it when I played it, because the actual monorail itself moves so unbelievably slow that there's just 30 seconds to a minute of downtime between shooting the spotlights, which already pose zero threat, and it feels like you have all day to do.
It also doesn't help the monorail moves crazy slow, and if it's moving too fast for you, say if you're 80 years old and it's moving too fast, you can slow down time to like make it move at a snail's pace. Like, what were they thinking? Now, to add on to the pacing problem, the walkie-talkie sections are completely unnecessary and unskippable, leading to some lulls in the action, especially on subsequent playthroughs. These aren't that long, these aren't that distracting, but it is questionable as to why these are even in here. I suspect a lot of these were hidden loading screens.
Well, there's no reason that they can't feed you the info they do in these scenes in gameplay, instead of forcing you into a slow walk with the new UI on your screen.
I also didn't find the information they fed me during those walkie-talkie sections to be all that important either.
Which is a trend you see across a lot of games, even more modern stuff.
That's true, but it's the rod is here, and it's in modern games as well, unfortunately. It's just something we cannot seem to get rid of, these walkie-talkie sections. I don't know why we love them so much, but I'm getting sick of it.
Gotta have them, man. Nothing says, God of War, brutal, hack and slash, gore, like slow walking and having a conversation about life with your gay son. Another little thing, and I get it's a bit minor, but the weapon upgrade system in this is way too RNG to actually be worth engaging with much. The actual true upgrades that move your weapon up a star in power seem to be random drops from enemies. And aside from the slight buffs to ammo and damage, the upgrades don't feel like they make much of a difference.
The only one that was somewhat substantive is one of the upgrades you get on the lock-on laser doubles the amount of rockets you can shoot at once, but aside from that, most of it was just minor buffs.
Well, and on top of the traditional upgrades the enemies drop that take the weapon up a full star, you'll get these little chevrons that appear on your weapon that are a small portion towards a full upgrade whenever you pick up ammo for a gun you have that's already full on ammo. And this feels like a strange decision because it almost feels like you're incentivized to not use your best weapon to upgrade it quicker, or you can do what a lot of more experienced Vanquish players do. Say they want to upgrade their assault rifle. When an assault rifle drops on the ground, they'll take their existing assault rifle, swap it for a different weapon, go pick up the full ammo assault rifle, and then pick up the assault rifle they dropped earlier to kind of cheese the system and get an extra chevron towards an upgrade.
It's a really weird decision.
And I think the fact that when you play this game on God Hard, I noticed that they just do away with this upgrade system entirely. That kind of demonstrates how little impact it really has and how they truly feel about it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
The final little thing I'll criticize this game for is that I really do wish the environments weren't so largely boring and homogenous. And I get that the setting for this game, because it's this big war and you're storming a military base, that a lot of the environments are going to look kind of samey and be these military bases, but this game really is just lacking in interesting locations.
I mean, there are a couple exceptions, but overall I agree with that, yeah.
Act 4, Chapter 1, where there's a base built into this kind of jungle area, or the kind of gravity well section in Act 5 where you have anti-gravity. Those were cool little exceptions, but we really needed more because the vast majority of areas in this were just this washed out gray that kind of permeated most of the game. Vanquish is a bit of an enigma for me, because if I were to make you a bulleted list of the bad versus the good, as you've probably seen with this video, the bad would certainly have more points than the good, but certain aspects of this game have far more weight than others. For example, the story being terrible, for me, is very minor compared to how much fun the core gameplay loop in this game is.
It gets the most important part of a game right, which is the gameplay and how fun is that core gameplay loop. And that means a lot to me.
Well, let's leave it at this. I would take this extremely short game with all its flaws any day over carrying bags of flour in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or watching the 30-hour movie that is Death Stranding 2.